Welcome everybody to the channel. You've seen part 1 and you've seen part 2, which is there as well. This is now part 3. We're still talking to Doug Beckwith of MD Beckwith Painters and Decorators, which it's the firm I work for, shall I say. I work for that firm, and we're talking about old school painting and decorating. We're talking about what it was like back in the 60s. We're talking about what it was like as a painter and decorator coming up through the ranks and starting his own business. So this is where we're doing section 3, let's call it part 3, and we're just doing a little bit more of a talk. And well, get your coffee, get your Kit Kat, and just sit back and relax and just listen to what it was like back in the day. Right, so here we are back with Doug Beckwith. He's just been to the toilet for a toilet break because this has been a long session so far, and we're back all refreshed and we're going to carry on. Now, if you remember from the last section, part 2, we were talking about wallpapers and knocking off the salvage edges, and also how bad, well, really the joints were with pattern matching and things like that. So I'll pass you back over to Doug, my father, and he'll just reminisce about days gone by. Over to you.
I just think how it's going right back, how it's changed. I was saying the standards of all the years I was with my employer, he always used to call him Mr. Pears. He wouldn't have wanted you to have called him James. The other thing is that everybody that worked for him had to have a collar and tie on. Went to work in a collar and tie. Smart. Shoes all clean. You wouldn't have gone in dirty old boots in somebody's house. You'd be polished up. Okay, if you're doing a dirty job, you might swap them over, but that's how the standard was. Collar and tie, that's what we used to have. And now, whether that was instilled into me over the years, I think it must have been, because when I started on my own, I always wore a collar and tie. Brian, that worked for me, had a collar and tie. I kept on with a collar and tie right up until mid-80s, I would have thought, before everybody else, yeah, it's more comfortable, open neck shirt. So from a point of view of smartness, you might say, well, it's old-fashioned, is that? Who wants to be wearing a tie? You know, okay, fair enough. So I did change then, and I don't wear a tie at work. I've got a rack full in there that I used to use. Might have had a few paint spots on, but
I can remember back when you used to have the Bedford HA van, the HA 410. We had 2 of them, didn't we? We had a yellow one and a lime green one, and I always remember getting in the back of it, which you won't do nowadays. And there always used to be a tie just strewn and just curled up into the corner of the van when I was on the way to school and being dropped off. And so clearly you had a tie on when you started, but it didn't last very long before you took it off and it got chucked into the back of the van.
Well, it was more comfortable to work without a tie. Of course it was. Particularly if you do a stripping machine, as I've explained about that Sanderson room full of steam. You wanted to strip right off, you want to strip right off, aren't you? So everybody, you know, the standard weakened, and, you know, you go with the flow with it, really. So I never wear a tie now. Very, very rare.
And how do you think customers have changed over the years from the days when you were obviously being, so say polite, you're always polite to a customer, but where you calling that customer mom and things like that?
Well,
those days have gone, have they?
Well, I think they have. They virtually have gone. Everybody seems to have come to a level now. One time, you see on the gates, tradesman's entrance, that big job I worked for, where I used to say, if you come across the lady of the house, address her by mom. Morning, mom. Good evening, mom. Unless she makes conversation, don't. You know, if she wants to speak, she'll speak to you. But there was always a tradesman's entrance. You never went to the front door. They had a sign up, tradesman's entrance, and that's where you went. Well, that's not a bad thing. You go in the back door, nobody really sees you. Particularly on these big houses, you don't want to be tramming through where you're not working. So, you know, that's another thing that's changed. And I think the other thing that's changed as well is it was easier. I think if you went back in time, before my time, if you went back 60, 70, 80 years ago, it was far easier being in business from a paperwork point of view. There wasn't the legislation, there wasn't the health and safety that there is today. Employment laws, there weren't the employment laws that there are like today. You've got to be so careful and precise with everything. You know, fair enough, you're looking after the employees. But in those days, it was easier. You could, I don't want you next week, mate, you can get going. You know, and get rid of them. P45 if they didn't do anything. But now it's all warnings and one thing or another. So I think it was easier then. And certainly I fell behind on the computer type stuff. I mean, basic stuff I can do, but Phil now, they're brought up with it. Youngsters are on these iPads, on the phones. At 2 years old, they're fiddling until they get it right, and then they're brought up with it, taught it at school. They didn't have computers in my day. You know, it's so much difficult from that point of view as well, paperwork. But it's easy if you're trained to do it. But I'm not interested in it. So it's the next generation coming on that can do it.
And that leads us nicely on to saying the next generation. And clearly, you all people are aware of me. Over 10,000 people now follow me on YouTube. We do touch on.
I couldn't be doing anything like that.
No, we do. I do try and touch on the social media side of Instagram, which isn't my main main place to be networking with people. It is clearly I am a YouTube channel that you're watching now. Yeah. But for me, YouTube is, and I've said it times many, and people that do know me through YouTube, is I'm here to help people, because I know there's a lot of people that are in business, they're doing painting and decorating, and I'm going to say it really quickly, have no clue. They have no clue about what the actual basics are of painting and decorating. They've not been to college. They've not done what we were speaking about in part one, the indentures and an apprenticeship. Hence why I felt, and I don't want to say I felt the need, but I felt there was something missing on YouTube to help people that do want to learn it, say correctly, but haven't had the opportunity to go to college and learn the trade properly. Like I've been very fortunate that I've been with a family firm that's done proper apprenticeships and been to college. Now, how do you feel about, I mean, I can remember back in the 90s when I was at college, you were on the steering group at Basford Hall College. Yeah, well, you went to Basford Hall College. Yeah. I was at Basford Hall College. I had the same lecturer, albeit he was coming up to retirement, that you had when you were finishing at college, Mr. Brown, Ken Brown. And those of you that know me and probably know Basford Hall College, and a few people that I'm on Facebook pages with will probably also know Ken Brown at Basford Hall College. How do you think the college element, the college side of thing, has altered with apprenticeships? Now, I know you've said previously, years back, things changed when they made it, I'll say loosely, law that at the age of 18 you wanted to be on full money. Have we taken a backward step where we're not encouraging apprenticeships, particularly in this day and age where the government, and I say governments, seem to promote everybody going to school and then straight on to doing A-levels for university? But realistically, we are still a society where there are people that are more practical than academic that would benefit from a proper trade apprenticeship, whether that be plumbing, joinery, brickying, brickwork, all those electrical, painting and decorating. Where can we improve? Where should we be going with apprenticeships now to get people back into a trade like ours that, for you and for me, we've had a very good career out of it. Financially, we've done very nicely out of it. We're not quite millionaires, but we've had a very comfortable lifestyle. I know I can be very appreciative of what you've put me through of education at school. You've been able to afford me going through private school. My sister's gone through private school, and that is because you've worked hard. You've run a business that's been successful, and you've reaped the rewards from it. Yes, as I say, we're not millionaires, but we're not struggling, because have we had a good grounding for work, that we have a work ethic? Has that all changed now that apprenticeships have fell by the wayside?
It's my own personal opinion that it was better years ago, where, I mean, when you first started off at 15, you got always, each year, the increment got larger until you came on full money at 21. You'd never be on full money until you're 21. I think
when you were properly qualified.
Oh yeah, it won't be on full money until you're 21.
No, when you were, don't matter that you might be 21 with no qualifications.
Yeah,
you'd have to have qualifications.
Well, it was up to the employer at the time. If he wasn't abiding by all the rules, you can pay anybody what you want.
And even now let me just interact and cut in. There are the trade rates that, I mean, you've probably seen some of the videos I've done.
There are virtually.
There are trade rates as guidelines to say whether, if somebody's over a certain age, if they've got no.
Well, I think in the first year I'd probably get a sixth of the wage of a tradesman, and then the following year the increment would go up a little bit more. There was the incentive to do better all the time and work your way up. You wouldn't get that full money until you were 21. Then the government stepped in and they thought, what's happening? Society's changed. People are getting children. They're having children at 18, living with somebody at 18. Well, they can't possibly manage on a third of a craftsman's wage. So you made sure that you didn't get involved like that. But today I think society's so changed and lax that they've had to bring it down, like the...
your 4-year apprenticeship's now down to about a 2-year to get your qualification sooner. Is that what
I think? Yeah, I think after 2 years, unless you go on for your final, it's the third one, isn't it?
Well, third year's craft certificate.
Craft certificate.
And then an advanced craft would be your 4th
so
year.
You could probably manage money-wise if you're supporting a wife. That's the reason they brought it down, I'm sure it is.
But how can we get...
But I didn't know anybody that needed to support anybody because they'd had a child. But now
times has changed.
They've changed. Society's changed.
But how do we get young people into apprenticeships now when they can look at working in a non-skilled role? I'm going to sweeping statement say I'm an Amazon delivery guy and I can earn 30 grand a year. Why do I need to do I'm not going to say 3 and 4 years at college. Why do I need to go to college now to learn a trade to only come out with the X amount of money when I can do something that doesn't take any skills, or clearly loose term, but I can go and shelf stack on minimum wage and get 24,000 a year. How do we encourage people back into the trade?
Think the young ones will look, I'm just generalising, of course not all of them, but who wants to go into a dirty job? Pretty dirty jobs. Well, it's hard work, it's building, all the building trades. Probably electricians not too bad, but mechanics, a lot of them, I don't want that dirty job. You get dirty in there and working on cold engines. No, we'll sooner do something else at a desk.
I can't see how any future government is going to alter that mindset that we've got now. Have we got, and now this is going to be a question to the people that are watching, have we now in 2024 got a work-shy workforce, a work-shy younger workforce? I know clearly there are people that are going to say to me, I've worked from the age of and there are people like that, which is brilliant, but there's also an element that there's the entitlement there and the expectation that it's going to be given to them on a plate. And has that altered? Yes, I think it has altered in the last
and the old adage is
20 to 30 years.
And the old adage is you can't buy experience. That's why you had to have a 5-year, or when my father was a plumber, turn of the century, 1920 or something like that.
Yeah, we're looking at 1900s.
Yeah, we've got 1900s, yeah. I mean, it was so different then. They had a 7-year apprenticeship, then it dropped down to 6, then to 5, and then it's now just how it is at the moment. 2 years and you get that qualification, and then you really, I don't think that gives you a lot of experience. Can't teach 2 years of me being an apprentice at 15 up to 16, 17. I wouldn't be doing wallpapering. They wouldn't even let you loose on it. You got to get all the basics first. Well, they're cramming all that in because you go to college for so many weeks, then you're with the employer for probably another week. Fair enough. But how can you cram all that in? You can't buy experience.
Do you think...
I think that's why the older tradesmen, they'll always do, that's been trained up like I have. They've got that experience and they know all the ins and outs of what to do. And you can't buy that experience.
Do you think that learning curve then for somebody that's not been to college, started a business virtually cold, coming out, I was going to say, they've not been to college, they've not got the experience of working for somebody, thinking they can go into painting and decorating because it's easy.
Yeah, but what are they starting off? That for a start, that
learning curve is going to be very steep for actually getting that experience.
What we do doing those 5 years I was there, we did a bit of sign writing. You could go into that branch of it. Some were very good at it. I did a bit of it. Graining and marbling, we had courses on that. Are they doing all that in those 2 years? I don't think they are. And we got experience by practicing. I used to practice at home certain things.
Also, the difference is you were with a firm. You were with a firm learning that on-site training, like I've been. You're not just doing...
But the easiest thing to start up, if you want to think, oh, I'll be a painter.
Or window cleaner.
Or a window cleaner.
Or a gardener.
Or a...
grass cutter.
Yeah. Or people coming out of... it's the easiest trade to start. Pick a bucket up, tin of paint. Oh, I can paint your room out. That's easy enough. But to what standard? Because you've not been trained to the preparations, 80% of the job. And that's the easiest thing to do. But if you want a bit of expertise, they probably won't want to touch wallpaper because they've never been taught how to do it. Some think they can do it. Well, I can do wallpapering. Well, I did a room for my mother and she was pleased with it. Well, it's somebody that's paying for it going to pay? I don't know.
But do you think then there's a level of what their customer client base will be?
Depends on what standard. Depends what your market is all the time, whatever business you're in. What's your market? What are the standards? What you're working to? I don't know. I sometimes think it's gone wrong in a way. I really do.
Will it ever get back to what it was?
No, I don't think it will. No, I don't think it will. Sure it won't. How can it? People want big money straight away, I'm afraid, don't they?
Yeah.
And I mean, the living wage, okay, that goes up. They put it up and put it at £11, 44 now, wherever it is. Yeah, that £11.44 to me, they'll probably say that is just a living wage. Yeah, but surely that is going to create inflation. This is how I see it. For the simple reason is that if we're on a rate, we have wage rates. So if they go up
it's
a pound,
the sliding scale.
We've got to move forward with it like that. So we've then got to put another £1 an hour on to our customers. Surely that's creating inflation. I'm sure it must be.
Well, it must be because even like your basic...
we don't want to go to the archaic days where...
exploitation of workforce.
Sending a lad up a chimney to sweep it and bevving boys and all that. We don't want all that back. Of course we don't. Good job we had unions, but, that's another thing, isn't it, really? Don't get political about that. But from employing people, they are better off than they were 60 years ago, aren't they? And beyond that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's difficult. No, I don't know. I'm not a politician, but I can see it from point of view that every time that living wage goes up, it's got probably go up with inflation anyway. If it stayed where it was, it'd be out of pocket again, wouldn't they? Wouldn't be able to live.
Right, now we put the world to right on that. Right, you're coming up to 80 very soon. You're still working. Do you enjoy what you're doing? Can you see yourself finishing totally? Have you had a good career out of it? And this is what we're going to conclude and finish this video on.
I've enjoyed it very, very much. There's been up and downs. I've struggled at times. Financially, you know.
We've had a couple of recessions.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy. But, you know, it's peaks and troughs. It's the same with anything in life. It can be up and then down. But at the end of the day, average out. Enjoyed it. It's a grand trade to be in. It's artistic. I mean, I think of an electrician, very clever. Most of their work is behind what the customer's not seeing. They'll put the wire and then you have a plug and then wire everything up. They're all sockets there. But it's not a thing of beauty. We can transform a room, you know, from whatever it is, whatever style you want, and it can look totally different. That's what's satisfying. It's artistic. You know, I think it is artistic and they've enjoyed it. Answer your question, while I'm fit enough, I'm taking a little bit more time off now because the wife's a little bit disabled. So I'm looking after her, but no, I can go in whenever I want. If we're busy, I'll take time off when I want. Well, I'm nearly 80. I think I deserve a bit of a rest.
And on that note, we're going to say thank you very much.
And thanks for watching.
And thanks for
Hope
watching.
It's been helpful and not too political.
So there we have it. We've done 3 videos now, and they're all in that playlist there that we're talking to my father about what it's been like as a painter and decorator, over the last 60 odd years. Been in business since 1965, and well, I think you've heard we've put the world to right, haven't we? Hope you found it interesting. If you've got anything to interject and add, please put the comments below, and I'll see you on the next videos where we're probably back on painting Doris the door.